role. And as we are about to begin the day's activity, happen to be the last day of this conference, we invite your presence with us, as you always do. Come among persons who meet to talk about the welfare of persons in the position of leadership. We want to thank you, God, for those who led, those who have gone through the rigors, those who were at the forefront of leadership of this association. And Lord, I just want to ask you also to have your mighty hands upon those who will be taking over, that you will guide, you will instruct, you will be that person, that element, that force that will always be there, guiding, in front, oh Lord, providing answers to difficult questions. And Lord, once more, we thank you for teachers. We thank you for the gift of teaching. We thank you, God, that we can pass on, we can mold person's life. And as we endeavor and continue to do so, may those in our charge be made better as we, as teachers, prepare them for the world of work. Lord, bless us today. Guide the day's activities. We look to you and those who are to take part, the Ministry of Education. May they so be endued with patience, understanding, and knowledge as they come to deliver to this group, and may all be done to your glory and honor, and in the end all will be benefited and you will be given the glory. Thank you, Lord, for answering our prayers as we look forward to your guidance. Thank you, Lord, through Jesus Christ, our Lord, who taught us when we pray to say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from all evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Have a wonderful day, everyone. God bless you.
I am now asking Mr. Harrison, member of the Credentials Committee, to indicate the constitutionality of our conference at this time. Mike in the aisle, please.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning,
Conference. Based on the articles and the memorandum and articles of the Association, of the Jamaica Teachers Association, I report to you that we are duly constituted for the 8th session of conference.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now have the clear to proceed with the business of the Jamaica Teachers Association. Traditionally, the session on the Wednesday of conference is usually one that sparks much excitement, as this presents an opportunity for teachers to interact directly with our employers. This year, we continue in this vein, and it will be no different. Teachers are the bedrock of this nation. We are the caring engineers who know exactly how to craft lessons to impart the formal curriculum to students of varying degrees. We understand the classroom very well, and therefore it is urgent and necessary that as we craft an education sector that is designed to meet the demands and needs of our primary clients, that we be consulted and our voices are heard. Colleagues, it is necessary that at this time, at this point in our history, we must coalesce around a common cause, that of ensuring, as teachers, the world understands and knows our value. It is time for us to demand that as teachers, our voices must be understood as we know how to teach. We know how to create opportunities for students to unearth their talents. We know how to think outside the box. We know how to ensure that our students pass the exams. We know how to get a non-responsive student to respond to different variables that we will present to them. I am confident that in this era of technology, in the age of artificial intelligence, that the work of a teacher will not go unnoticed and will not become redundant. We are the ones who provide the opportunity to create all kinds of AI. Therefore, it is necessary for us not to become too concerned about our jobs being replaced by robots and other AI. It is important and necessary, however, for me to indicate that as educators operating in the paradigm of the 21st century, it is incumbent upon us to remain current and relevant, using the necessary tools available to us to enhance our craft and the experience in our classroom. It is against this background that I welcome you to this session of our conference and hope that as you interact with the Ministry of Education, many of your questions and concerns will be answered and all your fears will be allayed as together we continue to collaborate for the development of education in our nation. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I ask, are there any questions or notices of motion for the conference? I ask again, colleagues, are there any questions or notices of motion for the conference at this time?
Notice of motion to the 59th Annual Conference the appraisal of the Office of the Secretary General. Of which include collective will as law, equality, accountability, and transparency. Be it resolved that a regular appraisal system for the Office of the Secretary General be implemented, guided and ratified by the General Counsel, the body responsible for his or her appointment as outlined in the Memorandum and Articles of Association for the conference year 2023-2024. Be it further resolved that the Human Resources Manual be updated to reflect the details of the appraisal to include the length of the appraisal period and the instrument to be used in said appraisal forthwith. Be it further resolved that the matter be discussed and a clear direction of the process be agreed upon at the first General Council meeting in September 2023, and that the above be implemented and the Secretary General be appraised for the conference year 2023-2024. Moved by Melissa Beckford Simpson and seconded by Rayan Simpson.
Seconded by?
Mr. Rayan Simpson.
Noted. Thank you very much for that notice. This matter will be addressed in the next session. Do we have any other questions or notices at this time? Notices of motion? All right, so if there are no other questions or notices of motion, ladies and gentlemen, we will proceed. We are awaiting the arrival of the Ministry of Education team. And they are about to enter the conference hall at this time. are simply awaiting the arrival of the ministry personnel. Ladies and gentlemen, we crave your indulgence. The party will be here momentarily. Thank you. Session of our conference. Put your hands together for the members of the Ministry of Education. and gentlemen, now that our ministry's team is settled, Minister of Education, or Permanent Secretary, or Chief Education Officer. And I'm certain that the minister will introduce the other members of the team. Ladies and gentlemen, again, this is an important session in the life of our teachers. Minister, we view this session as important as our teachers, our members, get the opportunity to interact with the Ministry of Education firsthand. We are at an important juncture in education. We have seen where at this point our teachers are migrating and are choosing other careers. At this juncture, there still remains unresolved issues within the compensation review. At this juncture, there is another task force on education report with recommendations to be implemented. At this juncture, Minister, there are deficiencies and gaps in the education sector that we all must treat as priority. We speak to special education. We speak to early childhood education. We speak to how education is funded. We speak to the matter that, of course, technology is essential, and there are still schools who are devoid of the necessary technological resources that will make them effective in today's dispensation. These are issues that confront us, and education, being the chief driver of our country's development, it is urgent and necessary at this point that we find the common ground to ensure we can progress forward. Minister, our teachers are not desirous of leaving our shores. They want to stay here, but compensation is an issue. And though there is a teacher shortage globally, though teachers are leaving the classroom worldwide, in other jurisdictions, our teachers have opted to go there because the remuneration package is better than our own. Minister, we strongly believe that if we get it right and we adequately compensate our teachers, then our teacher specialists will choose to stay in our classrooms. And this is what we are defending at this time. There's much work to be done. And at this time, I invite you to address the 59th conference of the Jamaica Teachers Association as we have a conversation as to how we can amicably move forward in solving the issues of education in our country. Ladies and gentlemen, our Minister of Education, the Honorable Favour Williams.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I am sorry, but this looks a little bit better. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here at this year 59th conference. We look forward to the discussion today. And in my presentation, I will try to touch on as many topics as I know that are important to you. But let me begin by acknowledging Mr. Leighton Johnson, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, and to say to Mr. Johnson, or should I call him Uncle Johnson, Uncle Leighton, to say to Uncle Leighton, I truly am I truly am looking forward, and I'm sure the team at the Ministry of Education and Youth is also looking forward to this new year with you and to see how best we can accomplish much in this year to come. Let me acknowledge as well immediate past President, Mrs. LaSonia Harrison, President-elect, Mr. Mark Smith, of course, Dr. Mark Nicely, your Secretary General, all the delegates who are here this morning. Let me acknowledge as well members of the executive. To our Permanent Secretary Acting, Dr. Maureen Dwyer. And you will note that I say doctor. Last year I was not saying doctor, but this year I am saying doctor. So give her a round of applause for that. I know getting to that point involved hard work. Many among you as well have that title, and I know you take it very seriously. And let me acknowledge our Chief Education Officer, Acting, Dr. Kassan Troop, and we have lined up for you our regional directors, our Director of Infrastructure, and other members of other entities and agencies at the ministry. And I'm going to ensure that you have adequate time for questions. So it is indeed my pleasure to be with you again as you meet for your 59th annual conference and annual general meeting. Congratulations to the new executive under the presidency of Mr. Leighton Johnson and President-elect Mr. Mark Smith. Let me join you in thanking immediate past President Mrs. LaSonia Harrison and Secretary General Dr. Mark Nicely for their selfless service and obvious commitment to the education sector and our nation at large. I also must pause to acknowledge the hard work of the principals, teachers, guidance counselors, deans of disciplines, and administrators for being the backbone on which our sector rests and relies. Your personal and collective contributions are greatly appreciated. With the ministry team and other senior officials, look forward to the year ahead as we continue with the task of transforming the education sector and educating our children. The team, with your support, your energy, your authenticity, we are ready for the transformation. And that is where I start this morning. Educators throughout the past year, the Ministry of Education and Youth has begun to accelerate the pace of transformation in education program against the background of the recommendations from the Orlando Patterson-led Jamaica Education Transformation Commission. We have been working in tandem with the Education Transformation Oversight Committee, ETOC, headed by Dr. Adrian Stokes, sharing the recommendations, implementation plans, and activities through a series of consultations across a variety of stakeholders. And I want to say, further to your suggestion, Mr. President, I look forward to an engaging and more vigorous, broad-based participation of the education sector, especially our teachers, as we seek to drive and support education transformation that is meaningful and relevant to us in Jamaica, and that will allow us to see greater improvements in our educational outcomes. I know that there have been many studies in the past, and your president alluded to that last night. This study has pointed out the lack of implementation on the part of the Ministry of Education and Youth, and that is what we have taken on seriously this time. As you may know, there are 7 pillars of transformation that guide our work plans, and these are: number 1, governance, administration, leadership, and legislation; number 2, early childhood education; number 3, curriculum, teaching and teacher training; number 4, the tertiary sector; number 5, TVET in Jamaica; pillar number 6, infrastructure and technology, and I'll have a lot to say on that; and pillar number 7, finance. Under each pillar of transformation, the work we as educators and administrators undertake will impact approximately 3,000 early childhood institutions, 1,010 public primary and secondary schools across 7 educational regions, among 14 agencies and 10 divisions. Collectively, these cater to over 410,000 students, 25,000 teachers and principals, supported by caregivers, administrative and ancillary staff across the sector and institutions. When we include the 107,000 children in the early childhood sector, those numbers increase to over 500,000. Add to that the teachers and caregivers in the early childhood sector. Add to that the administrative staff across our schools. So educators, as you can tell, this is a number of legislative initiatives and to fully implement other policies to improve educational outcomes. Among the legislative issues, and I'm going to take time to go through these because in the transformation report, it really zeroes in on the fact that not much legislation has come out of the Ministry of Education and Youth. And so among those that we're currently working on and are at different stages are the Jamaica Teaching Council Bill, which is currently before the Joint Select Committee of Parliament, and to which the JTA made their submission in Parliament. There's the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission, which is the commission to oversee higher education. We also need to amend the education bill, in particular regarding the criteria for appointment as principals. We have the Child Care and Protection Amendment Bill, Section 24, regarding correctional orders. This was already passed in the lower house, and now it's to be debated in the Senate. We also have some work to do on the broader Child Care and Protection Bill. There's the Overseas Examination Amendment Bill to include TVET as one of the examinations to be administered by the Commission. And I should mention here that the NCT vet has now been fully transferred to the Ministry of Education and Youth as of August 2nd this year, along with the Vocational Training Development Institute that you may know as VTDI. It is now a public educational institution with a mandate to train and graduate as many TVET teachers as possible. We know, we've heard the cry from many of our technical schools about TVET teachers, the lack thereof. And so we will be significantly increasing the capacity of VTDI to train and graduate as many TVET teachers as possible. In addition, there are other pieces of legislation on the ministry's agenda for amendment. We have to amend the University Council of Jamaica Act, and work is advanced there. This is already approved by the Cabinet. The larger Education Act and education regulations, we are going through a review process there. Children Adoption of Act and the Children Guardianship and Custody Act. As you can see, there are at least 10 pieces of legislation that need to come out of the Ministry of Education and Youth. And the reason for bringing this to you this morning is to say that in government, legislation, policies, and directives underpin everything we do. And so it is a must for us to do this legislative work. If we do not do it, things will just meander around. It's the laws that we use to advance the education sector, to upgrade the education sector. So that is what is on the legislative agenda. It is a big pillar of transformation. In the report, wanted you to be aware of the work that has been done and to say we obviously want your input into the process, much as we did when we were going through the Jamaica Teaching Council bill in Parliament. I'll turn now to look at the school year just ended. With the PEP results for 2023, I want to say that we are encouraged by this year's results, considering the many years, I should say, of the pandemic, starting in March of 2020 and continuing into 2022. So I want to acknowledge and really thank all our educators who helped to prepare our PEP students, not just this year, but in prior years and in the years to come. Yes, you can give a round of applause for that. A lot rides on it. The PEP is a very high-profile exam, as you know, and so it's hard work for our teachers. But I want to say that this is the first year that we have been able to compare the PEP results with those of a prior year, and we were able to compare it with the results in 2019. And you may ask, why 2019? Why not 2022? Recall that 2019 was the first year of the PEP, and right after that cohort of students did their PEP in the very next year, the pandemic hit. And we had to modify the exam in 2020, as you are aware. We did the same again in 2021 because we had to respond to the context in which we were all living through. A further modification happened in 2022. So it was not possible for us to compare across the years. We're able to do that this year for the first time, and I want to share those figures with you and to thank you again for all the work that you have done with our students. These students this year were those who, they are those who've spent the most number of years in the virtual space, and you were there with them as well. So for mathematics, in 2019, 41% of students were in the proficient and highly proficient category. That compares with 57% in 2023. In science, 49% in 2019. This compares to 64% in 2023 in the proficient and highly proficient categories. In social studies, 63% in 2019, 67% in 2023 in the proficient and highly proficient categories. And in language arts, 55% in 2019 versus 60% in 2023 in those categories. And so this gives us great encouragement for the numbers for our students. And we want to say again a big thank you to all our teachers. Yes. Of course, we know that there's still a lot of work to be done to get those students who were assessed in the categories of developing and beginning of the PEP exam into the proficient and highly proficient categories as they move along in high school. And allow me to share that there is no doubt in my mind that you, our teachers, can get this done. I have every confidence in you, our teachers. Let me say thank you again to our educators for your continued work to support struggling to recover from the disruptions to teaching and learning due to the pandemic. The National Summer School is one element of the National School Learning and Intervention Plan, designed to create learning opportunities focused on closing learning gaps. Many of our teachers participated in the summer program to the benefit of our students. You didn't have to participate in the summer program, but you did, and we want to say thank you. For the 2023, the Summer Academy was designed to target current grade 5 students to help them get to the level of mastery in numeracy and literacy. Additionally, we focused on those students entering grade 7 who needed extra support in reading in order to ensure that they are able to perform at their corresponding grade level. And again, thank you for the work that was done. I am sure that we will see it manifest in the years to come. Key elements of the Summer Academy, as you know, were the summer pop-up sessions in which you, or educators, participated and engaged with students who needed assistance in literacy, numeracy, or both. Thank you for your time and resolve to getting this done. I know that we can look with confidence at the next school year. I want to turn now to something of importance to our teachers that Ever since I've been in the position of being Minister of Education and Youth, I've heard the complaints. And I took time to understand what it was. And it's that issue that has dogged the education sector for a while, in which teachers who, after spending 10 years in the profession and are eligible for their 8 months leave, are sometimes not approved for it. And they continue to teach and they lose the benefits, meaning there's no further accrual to them for that. Well, this year, for the first time, all teachers who applied for their 8 months leave were granted approval, and we believe that is a big deal. We approve, I believe, and Dr. P.S., you can correct me, 1,300, thereabouts. 1,500 teachers for their 8 months leave. Obviously, your leave creates a void in our schools, one that is difficult to fill given the short-term nature of the position. But as you know, we have a facility approved by the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service in which teachers going off on their 4 months or 8 months leave can choose to be their own replacement. And of course, not only will you be paid for your vacation, but you'll also be paid for the engagement at your current remuneration. But it is your choice. It can be offered to you. We'd like for you to accept, but we recognize that it is your choice. Another important listening that I did to our teachers and heard, not just our teachers, our administrators in our schools, was the issue of postcodes. You know what postcodes are and the significance of them. You know that if you get to retirement and you don't have a postcode, it's all kind of problems when you get there. And it takes a while to be sorted out. All that time, you're not getting your retirement and people running around looking for the information and so on. Well, we've done the work. And it started very early in my tenure at the ministry. And so I want to advise you that the ministry has received a total of 5,377 established posts from the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. This includes both academic and non-academic posts. If you want to know the numbers, 3,413 academic and 1,964 non-academic, such as plant managers, systems administrators, cooks, guidance counselors, caregivers, secretaries, deans of discipline, etc. The regions are in an advanced stage of preparing the letters. We're not just promising you that it's going to be done. We're actually preparing the letters to send out to you. And this is expected to be completed by August 31, 2023. Mr. President, that applause sounds weak. We're also excited about the ministry's recently launched Job Bank portal to streamline the process of bringing together job seekers in a convenient and efficient manner, but it also provides a platform for schools to reach potential candidates, to sell themselves. I know that currently it costs a lot for schools to advertise, and so this platform is there for our schools to use, because I do know as well that within the profession there is movement. And I do know that there are persons outside of it who want to better navigate and know where the positions are. And I know this because people send me resumes seeking jobs in the sector. And so we had to create this platform so those seeking jobs could meet up easily, seamlessly with the schools that are looking, whether it be short-term or longer-term positions. And so this is there for schools to post, to shortlist applicants, to schedule and manage the process, communicate with potential employees, and as I said, an important feature is that our schools can put their profile, they can advertise their profile on that platform. I want to switch now to, very earlier on in my presentation, talk about critical repairs and infrastructure work. If there's one recurring theme within the education sector, it's the infrastructure of our schools, the problems with the infrastructure at our schools. One of the pillars, you might ask, what does this have to do with education transformation? Well, one of the pillars, and a very, very important pillar of education transformation in the Orlando Patterson-led Commission report is infrastructure and technology. In fact, the report calls on us to invest significantly in the infrastructure of our schools. About 2/3 of the cost of implementing the report is infrastructure and technology. And so it's an important pillar of transformation. It's a major part of education transformation, because at the end of the day, we want all our teachers, our educators, to be in comfortable surroundings. We want our students to be in classrooms that are well equipped. We do not want classrooms in our schools in which roofs are leaking, they're infested with termites, the desks are breaking down. That is not what we want in the education sector. And I'm here to tell you that that is not what we want to see. And that we do have a laser-like focus. We meet weekly, except when we have to reschedule because of some other pressing matter. Under the 2023 to 2024 Critical Repairs and Infrastructure Maintenance Program, $440 million was allocated to fund critical repairs and maintenance activities in 125 schools across the 7 regions. And we do have our technical services unit here, responsible for critical maintenance, that we will allow time for question and answer. But just let you know, a total of 165 million has been budgeted to close 23 contracts that we carried forward from last year, 22-23. We will be spending 65 million for maintenance and renovation projects in 7 schools, and a total of 210 million has been set aside to carry out critical repairs in 95 schools for termite treatment, electrical repairs, repairs to bathroom and roof repair, with 30 million disbursed to each region to help to manage these projects. I want to say to you that, and you might find this hard to believe, we're not short of funds to do the work. We're not. It is the truth. It is the truth. What we need is a more accelerated process. It takes too long for the building officer to come out and look, and for design work to be done, and the tender to go out and come back, and go out again and come back. And then he has to go up to the next level, and the next level, and the next level. That's what's holding up the process. It's not the money. And when I tell you that I am present at these meetings on a weekly basis to try to push through, to understand what are the hurdles in the way of those who have to do their job. When I tell you I'm physically there at those meetings, it is the truth, because I go out to schools and I see the conditions. You, as principals, should not have to call us at the central ministry to tell us your roof is leaking, because we should have a database to tell us the condition of the schools. And you know what is true? We do have a database. We do have a database that we need to begin to actively use and be more proactive in going out and helping schools. And when I tell you that the Orlando Patterson-led Commission report is calling on us to significantly invest in the infrastructure of our schools and to ensure technology is at our schools, it's to tell you the importance of having proper, fully functioning infrastructure in our schools. I know recently ramps came into focus in our schools. We did publish the information as to how many schools currently have ramps and rails. To date, in terms of the continuing work, 32 schools have been identified as having or will have students with special needs and will require the construction of new ramps. Of the 32, we have to do new ramps in 24 schools and additional ramps in 8 of them. So far, 22 schools have been visited. 12 of those are at the point where the work will go to tender shortly, and so on. And we are moving apace to ensure that there are no impediments, no physical impediments to our special needs students to get to their classes and to participate in other activities at school. We also have electrical upgrading projects. 244 million was allocated to carry out pre-contract and or contract activities in 47 schools, including Tarrant High, Prairie Primary, and Infant. There's also electrical work for Homewood Technical. Bids have been invited for Little London, Savannah Lamar Primary, McGrath, Alston, and Seaford High Schools, just to name a few. Fencing projects, another sore point for schools as schools become more concerned about safety and security. 73 million was allocated to carry out pre-contract and contract activities in 56 schools. They tell me that they have to do the survey work, the design work, and so on before you can see a post, with the fencing at the school. So here again, you may think it's easy to just come and put in a fence at the school, but no, we have to go get a surveyor to make sure that the boundaries are good and proper, and then we have to do the tendering process and so on. But we are committed for all of those schools that have requested fencing, for the fencing to be done. I know school furniture is another sore topic, but by now, my team is telling me that high schools should have received funding for the procurement of school furniture based on their needs. A total of 97 million was dispersed for this. At the primary level schools, 1,400 pieces of furniture, which is student desks and chairs, were dispatched to regions 1, 2, and 4 based on requests and needs. 74 pieces of teachers' desks and chairs were dispatched to Region 5. 3,800 pieces of furniture were scheduled to be dispatched during August here to other regions, additional desks and chairs, and so on. And so if you had put in a request and you're not seeing yet, please contact your region. They will be able to let you know. As you know, we continue to have an active furniture repair program. We have 11 schools engaged to repair school furniture. We also continue to have an active program of creating new desks and chairs across several of our schools. So based on the framework agreement that the ministry has embarked on, 16,000 pieces of furniture are being manufactured, and they should be completely distributed by August 28, 2023. Educators, even as we strengthen the sector via investments in infrastructure and technology, we continue to give our undivided attention to what happens in the classroom. And I want to say again that the Ministry of Education and Youth is committed to improving teaching and learning in order to have better student outcomes, and as such, will continue to provide support to teachers and students. And the target area for this upcoming school year is mathematics. And again, we will be deploying 43 mathematics coaches and 11 specialists to 151 schools. Coaches will continue to support teachers through alignment with job-embedded professional development opportunities focused on improving lesson planning and delivery. In addition, regional mathematics team will continue to facilitate webinars for students in grades 4, 5, 6, 10, and 11. There will also be intervention sessions for students entering grade 6 to enable mastery in numeracy. In addition, the ministry will continue to support the development and administration of the mathematics student-teacher diagnostic test to all first-year primary and secondary math student teachers in all public and private teacher training institutions. And these results will be made available to students and their institutions in October so that appropriate interventions can be developed and implemented in a timely manner. We'll also continue to facilitate webinars for mathematics student teachers to complement the delivery of their respective programs. We also have literacy plans for September 2023 through to April 2024. 244 schools have been identified for this intervention. We will begin by revising and providing resources for lower primary in the targeted areas for phonics and literacy assessment. We'll train teachers at the grade 7 to 9 level in content area reading. We'll give direct coaching support to teachers, and the team will spend 3 or 6 days in each school, allowing for enough time with teachers. At the secondary level, the team will continue to work with heads of English departments and their teams to enhance the delivery of English literature and to support subject specialists in delivering content area reading, the emphasis at this level being that of reading to learn and to garner information and make decisions. In terms of general professional development, ongoing in-service professional development will be convened with teachers of grades 1 to 3 and 4 to 6. While training will include some generalities in literacy, each grade will be exposed to a focus area directly connected to areas of emphasis at that level. So for example, grade 1 teachers will be exposed to interpretation of the grade 1 individual learning profile, alongside bolstering teachers' abilities in the delivery of the foundational skills of phonics to get students ready to develop into readers. And these are, we're not saying that you are deficient in these areas. That's not what we're saying. It's just a recognition of ongoing development among our teachers, much like what happens in all other industries, whether it's private or public. There's ongoing development. And so we will be working with you. We'll continue to develop and liaise with school-based literacy coordinators, enrichment center coordinators, heads of departments, and other middle managers. The key teachers in schools have both the skills and expertise to allow the work to be bolstered in the classroom. Let me just touch a little bit on STEM education in Jamaica. We recognize the role of STEM in building resilient economies, and we have partnered with 21st Century Education to implement a pilot in 42 schools using coordinated STEM approach. The phased implementation commenced with initial teacher training activities for 42 teachers and the engagement of over 50 students in STEM camps during June to July of this year. Full pilot implementation is slated for September 2023 and will feature access to STEM courses on the 21st Century platform, as well as student participation in STEM projects aligned to some areas of the National Standards curriculum. Other key activities to take place in preparation for the full rollout of the pilot include engagement of selected teachers, and this will happen during the week of August 23 to 24, principals and technology leads, August 25, and assigned education officers, September 1, to provide monitoring and evaluation support. We look forward to STEM education becoming more commonplace in our education sector. I know that you do it, you teach STEM subjects right now, but they're taught in a discrete way. So you teach mathematics, you teach science, you teach technology, but we want to see greater integration of the subjects. The experts tell us that when we integrate these subjects, magic happens in the imagination of our students. So switching now to ICT, or technology in education. If you recall, this is also a major pillar of transformation. Thank you. So we understand the need for internet connectivity in the teaching and learning process, and we are committed to delivering on the promise to have broadband connectivity for all schools across the island. And so far, we are well on the way. We're not saying that every school has broadband internet connectivity yet. We're saying that we have completed some schools. And I believe that we're pretty close to the halfway mark in terms of the number of schools that have been connected. We are using a number of different technology to ensure schools are connected. So those that are close to the government's fiber optic cables, we are connecting those schools. There are other schools that are being connected using microwave technology. There are other schools being connected using satellite and other technology. Whatever it takes, we are going to ensure that we connect all of our schools all across Jamaica. Many of you sitting here already have that connectivity, but it is a very, very ambitious program that has taken us so far 2 years, and we still have at least 2 more to go to ensure that everything connects and is working in our schools. We do not only want for internet to be present in the administrative offices, we want for it to be present in classrooms as well. So you, our teachers in classrooms, will have the use of that to help with your lessons. Thank you. Yes, it is a very ambitious program, but I tell you, we meet every week on Wednesdays, 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. And it's an interministerial effort with the Ministry of Science, Energy, Transport, and Telecommunication, with the Office of the Prime Minister, with the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, and all the different entities responsible for technology. So it is very serious work, and we are committed to doing it. And I can say to you again, finding the money to do it is not an issue. It's just staying on it, implementing day in, day out until all schools are completely and adequately connected. We seek your patience as we do this, because I know some of your schools would have seen workmen come already and connect up, but you don't yet have the service, right? That schools are out there like that. We have schools that are connected, that have the service, they're using it, but it's not fully across their entire campus yet. So different schools are at different stages. And for those schools who have not gotten a call yet, they've not seen a service person, they've not seen anything, you are not forgotten. If it's gonna take a satellite, we will get the service to you. It is our commitment. This is a major pillar of transformation in education. And so, if I say I'm happy to report that 10,000 laptops were delivered to 173 high schools for their labs, you will understand why I am happy today. When we can do things on a large scale in a very short period of time, that is what I like to see. All our labs in our secondary schools have been upgraded. You, the principals, told us how many state-of-the-art laptops you needed. And we didn't give you 1 short or 5 short. We gave you what you said you needed. And so we're asking you to ensure that your labs are protected, that you get the proper security feature for those laptops to connect them and keep them safe and secure, and that the students have access to it. It is to prepare them for greater things down the road, one of which is exams that they will soon begin to have to do online. CXC has been telling us this now for a number of years for us to prepare ourselves. So this is all part of that grand plan as well. For our teachers, you know that we have been distributing vouchers for you to go to different vendors to get access to a laptop. And I'm also happy to report that 83% of our teachers, that is 18,263 teachers, have received vouchers to purchase a laptop. And I want to say that if you are having any issues doing that, please let us know. Do not sit there, because we have distributed, of the vouchers that we have distributed, there are a couple of thousand teachers who still have not gone to purchase that laptop. So we want you to have access to the laptop. So please let us know if you're experiencing any issues. Of course, we want you to use all the resources, the e-resources that are available to you, that we spent quite a lot of man-hours together with you creating for you. So we want you to have access to it. And so you're going to need your laptop, connectivity, and so on to do it. Resources are available on the ministry's website. We have 1,238 recorded sessions suitable for instructions from early childhood to tertiary that we'd like for you to use. We have the available lessons can be retrieved from the MOEY's video lessons catalog, and you can access them as well through PBCJ, the EHSN network, and other platforms. Additionally, This is the third year that we are distributing e-books for public secondary schools, and we remain committed to continue the introduction of e-books. Again, for the students who have access to e-books, we got that information from you, our schools, to let us know which student has a device, has connectivity, and can make full use of the e-books. And for this year, e-books for grades 7 to 11 include principles of accounts, principles of business, integrated science, English language, and this is available for teachers and students. And educators, I want you to keep me updated on the usage of e-books in your classrooms. I look forward to your positive engagement with technology and seeing how this drives greater student outcome. So I'm winding down because I want to allow as much time as possible for questions. And so as I wind down, I take note that approximately 24,000 students have taken advantage of the Sixth Form Pathways program available across the 2 years of Sixth Form in schools. We could not have done this without you, our educators. And for this, I say thank you. Mr. President, that's pretty puny. $24,000 of our students have taken advantage of the Sixth Form Pathways program to continue their education, preparing them for better opportunities, preparing them to take a hold of opportunities. And I just want to repeat, in the event you did not hear, we could not have done this without you, our teachers, without you, our educators, without you, our principals, without you, our coordinators. And for this, I want to say thank you as we continue this program in the years ahead. My last topic has to do with policies and guidelines. Again, I heard the call from the incoming president for greater input by our teachers into policy, and as such, I am happy, I'm delighted today to share three items with you, to share draft policy on dress and grooming. We are putting it out into the education sector. We want you to read it. We want you to look at it in your context. We want you to understand the framework within which the dress and grooming policy will operate. We want you to try it on in your schools and give us your feedback. That's why it's in draft form. We could have moved to making it final, but we want to hear from you. It's going to take longer for us to get to that final stage, but your input is important because you may say to us, this policy sounds good on paper, but in implementation, here are some of the issues. We will listen. We've demonstrated that we listen to you and we can make amends. So the dress and grooming policy, the draft dress and grooming policy, will be published before the new school year starts this week, if I'm not mistaken, this week. You know, there have been a few times that I've gone to schools and I see students, maybe not more than 1 or 2 in a particular school, boys, wearing tams to school to cover their locks. This is 2023. We really, really should not be doing that anymore. We need to respect other people's religion. Yes, we need to say to all students, you have to ensure that your hair is clean and so forth. But come on, you shouldn't have to cover your hair unless that's what your religion calls for. All right? So those are some of the issues in the dress and grooming policy. We'll also be making available to this sector the draft National School Nutrition Policy and Standards. This was developed in collaboration with the Ministry of Health and Wellness to set the framework for school administrators to execute the means and measures in providing healthy and nutritious meals to students, as well as to provide the avenue wherein students can enjoy a holistic wellness program that involves both nutrition and physical activities. Again, even though we've gone through the rounds of consultations with different stakeholder groups, before we finalize, we want to hear from you, because you are going to look at this nutrition policy, and we want to hear from you as to what will work, what can be implemented. We want your input into this. We will also be putting out to the education sector guidelines, draft guidelines on devotion in schools. The guidelines for devotion in schools are designed for upholding civility and teaching the core universal values, which are milestones in the character building of the nation. Therefore, the aim of these guidelines is to create an environment wherein devotions contribute effectively to the holistic development of each student. But there are going to be some don'ts in the guidelines. There are going to be some things that will not be permitted. So we want to put it out to as broad an audience as possible, you being our educators and others. It will be a public document in draft form, and we encourage you to let us have your thoughts and your comments, and we will create an email address to which we can receive comments, written comments. We'll create other platforms as well, because we want to hear from you, and we want to ensure that we do not experience again what was experienced at one of our schools. Finally, we continue to encourage our principals to provide as much support as possible for our teachers, giving consideration to the following strategies. And principals, we know that you do already, but we want to encourage you to do even more. We want to encourage you to elevate teachers' voices, give recognition to the agency of the teacher. Listen to them. Let them share their big ideas. Empower them to be leaders and innovators in your school through regular opportunities to collaborate and provide them the support needed to bring their inspirations to life. provide access to teaching resources. And I want to say to our principals, teachers should not be using their personal resources to procure teaching aids. We are encouraging you, our principals, to establish systems that reflect teachers' welfare, social, emotional, and academic well-being, the growth needs of teachers. Because after all, a school is a unit. The principal is the CEO. Teachers are the employees. And so there's a relationship that should be nurtured among our teachers with their principals. We want our principals to establish active mentorship and induction programs for teachers. We want you to create positive, productive, and collaborative working environments. Schedule common planning times for those schools that do not do it now. Facilitate access to pre-prepared lesson plans and technological solutions to reduce the administrative burdens on teachers. So educators all, the team at the Ministry of Education and Youth, remain focused on your concerns. I thank all those educators who call me, who WhatsApp me, who stop by when they see me, whether in the supermarket or wherever, to share the realities with me from time to time. I really appreciate it. It helps to refine my own thinking, and it helps me to focus on what is critical for you. So educators, just as you hold the hands of many children day after day, allaying fears, boosting confidence, and instilling hope, I'm pledging my personal commitment and that of the Ministry of Education and Youth to furthering the engagement to support you and your passion. Of course, there are many more topics to be discussed, but for today, I will stop there. And if you have not heard a particular topic addressed today, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. We're here to help you through the issues as they arise. And together, we will advance the vision and reignite the passion. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for questions and answers. However, before we get to that point, there is an important public service announcement. Nicholas Bramfield, 1736 JR. Your car is in a precarious position and it's about to be towed. Please, it is by the security. You need to go attend to your vehicle at this time. Chair of Credentials, I see you at the mic.
Thanks for acknowledging me, Mr. President. Good morning, members of the head table. Good morning, delegates of the 59th Annual Conference of the JTA. Mr. President, I would like to advise that based on our protocols of operations, in another 2 to 3 minutes, this session would have expired. I therefore advise you that you need to seek a motion from us to continue for another 30 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. So the motion is before us, ladies and gentlemen. We need for this session to be extended for an additional 30 minutes. Do I have, so I see Ms. Kadian Scott. Do I have a seconder? Thank you very much. All in favor? Any against? The ayes have it. We will proceed with this session. Minister, we have noted the range of activities and initiatives that have been implemented and introduced, all in the name of transforming education. And as educators, we are grateful and appreciative of these initiatives. But again, as the JTA, one primary initiative that will significantly see to the transformation of education is the compensation of teachers. If we get that right, our teachers will remain and our sector will grow. Ladies and gentlemen, please note there are 2 mics and persons have already aligned themselves behind the mics. This is mic 1, that is mic 2. We will be allowing persons to hear their questions alternately. Mic 1, mic 2. Please remember the standing orders. Identify yourself. And ladies and gentlemen, I ask that we be as succinct as possible. Get to the question. Eliminate the preambles. Just ask the questions. Thank you.
You can't just ask questions, so you can't tell me that. You have to have a premise.
Good morning, conference. Joycelyn Gordon Brown from Northwest D, St. Catherine. Question: is it the lock of the boys here, or is it the plat? I need some clarity on that. Lock or platted here? For the boys, where you mentioned the wearing of thumbs, boys are platting. Let me try to explain it. So what is the accepted one? A lock here or a platted here? Or braids. Sometimes the braid are in the boys' hair. So we need some clarity on that. My next question is, why the trained teachers in basic schools are experiencing so many challenges to get their laptop?
Ladies and gentlemen, of course the member is on the floor. She's asking her question. The ministry team needs to hear. So we are going to ask that we extend the courtesies to the persons asking the questions and remain quiet as possible. Thank you.
My next question was, why the trained teachers in the basic schools are experiencing so many challenges to get their laptop and their tablets, because some of the teachers have not received none of the above. Thank you.
What we will do, we will take a series of 4 questions. The minister will respond. So we are now over to mic 2.
Good morning, conference. My name is Antonio Baker. I'm a delegate from the Portmore DA, St. Catherine. So, Minister, I want to express my thanks. The last conference I stood, I raised the matter about post numbers, and you gave me a time frame that has passed, but I see where things are happening where that is concerned. So I want to express my thanks to you. I sat there and I was prepping Hello, please do not rush me to do what I am doing.
Member, please address the chair.
Okay. So, Chair, I beg your indulgence to set the
But remember,
premise.
we are against time, so we're asking that we remove the preamble and just go to the question.
And without my preamble, sir, I cannot ask the question that I want to ask.
Make it quickly, sir, please.
Okay. So, Madam, you would have spoken about the sending out a draft for the dress code policy, and a lot of persons clapped. I did not clap because I was looking at the policy prior to you speaking about it, and it said that in 2018, and let me say, I am a dean of discipline. So while it might not affect the teachers, it affects the deans, and that is why I am putting forth what I am saying. In 2018, the dress code policy was effected. On the document, it said that it would be reviewed in 2021, which is 3 years after, and no review was done and implemented. In 2022, there was a consultation had at JC, I think it was, and 1 year later in 2023, nothing else has been said. Now you're saying, Madam, that there's going to be a draft document sent out, and I am asking, how long after the draft are we looking to get a document to say that this is what pertains? Because already I am under stress, ma'am, to ensure that we work with what has been said. So when am I looking to get a policy that will speak to the needs that I have? That is my question.
Good morning, conference. Nikisha Johnson, Blue Mountain Valley DA, St. Thomas. Last year at the 58th annual conference, I raised the issue of the non-payment of personal deductions for the teachers at a high school in the parish. Let me thank the ministry for the steps that they have taken so far to address the issue. However, today, 1 year later, we are still, the livelihood of our livelihood is still being affected because a number of teachers, their late fees and interest that have been accrued from the non-payment of those deductions is still outstanding, and their credit rate is affected, and we want to know when we will see a complete resolution to this issue.
Good morning, conference. Marjorie Harris, delegate, East DA, St. Thomas. Okay, my two questions, safety and security. What of the surveillance cameras that were promised to schools after the Daniel saga? And secondly, what about schools that are well fortified and fenced, but you do not have anybody to man the gate because schools can't pay them and the ministry is not paying them?
Thank you very much, members. So we will now allow the ministry to respond to the questions.
All right, so I'll start with the questions or issues that Ms. Joycelyn Gordon-Brown posed. In particular, she wanted to know if it's those students who lock their hair or whatever else. What we're saying is those children who, for religious reasons, wear dreadlocks, as we know them, those are the children that we are talking about. Those are the students, not those who just want to do it for style. Dr. Troop, you want, or Troop, yes, Dr. Troop, you want to address this a little bit more?
Here? Okay. All right, thank you, Minister. Good morning, colleagues. It's really a joy to see you. As it relates to the dress and grooming policy, so you know that we have had a series of consultations on this. We have spoken to teachers, we have spoken to deans of disciplines, we have spoken to principals, we have spoken to parents, we have spoken to the student body. So their leaders, we had them in a room for quite some time, and of course they were very vocal because they have been advocating for some changes in how we administer discipline in our schools and how we define some rules. So the guidelines that you will see will allow for some flexibility on the ground. So what we did was to outline, based on the discussions with you, some guidelines, some parameters that you can work within. So when we talk about the lock, we're not talking about a hairstyle, unless it is that at the local level, when you have discussed this with your parents, your student body, your teachers, and you take that to your board, and whatever is ratified, then that becomes your rule. So there will still be flexibility, there still be context informing what the final regulation in your school will be. Take, for instance, I'm seeing Mr. Gabriel. He just some time ago indicated to us that they did their deliberation and they moved to allow the girls to wear braids at school. And you know that's also done at Campion College. So there are a number of schools that have moved since the dialogue on this to have local consultations, and principals, teachers, there is a process. So we have the guidelines. Once you're going to look at your rules, you must discuss with your key stakeholders. You don't impose. You have a discussion. At the board level, there's a representative for the student, there's a representative for the parents, there's a representative for the teachers, and all of these persons will come to the table with a position from their stakeholder group that will be discussed and the board will ratify. Now, when you impose without discussion, then we have conflicts. So I want to salute Mr. Gabriel at this time because he was able to move in the consultation and make that radical change. So the lock, it's for those for religious purposes, those who are Rastafarians. But if it is that your school want to move to look at grooming in a flexible way, the consultations must be done. So we did not specify that no lock of a particular hairstyle, but the girls are allowed to groom their hair accordingly as we are moving with the time. But if you want to open that up in your school, we are advocating for the consultation process to take place, just as what we have experienced with Manchester High.
So here's a principle.
Non-discriminatory. So the issue is not for us to be discriminating, right? It's non-discriminatory, it's non-political, right? Those are some of the principles. We looked at equity, we look at equal opportunity. Those were some of the principles that undergirded the discussions we had right across this country. So what you'll see coming out to you is the output from a series of conversation informed by all stakeholder groups. And again, I want to reiterate, it will give you flexibility, but not flexibility to abuse, flexibility to consult, and your stakeholders agree. And we know majority carries. Your stakeholders must agree that this is the way this institution will move forward in our model of education.
All right, the next question that Ms. Brown asked was why are trained teachers in basic schools not getting access to their laptops? And Mrs. Brown, basic school teachers who are permanent are eligible for laptops. And so we want you to give us the names of those teachers who have not gotten it. We're fortunate this morning to have Mr. Lee from e-learning. He has his hand up there, so we can resolve that issue. He's on, okay, you'll be on the outside at the e-learning booth. All right, good, thank you, Mr. Lee. And for the Dean of Discipline, how long after the draft? By the first term of the new school year, we will finalize. Obviously, we don't want a draft to be out there for too long, but we want to give you enough time for you to send us your comments and so on. But by the end of the first term, we expect to finalize that. And I'll ask the PS to take the issue from Ms. Johnson, Nikisha Johnson.
Thank you, Minister. Ms. Johnson, what you describe is unfortunate, but there is an issue. If you're relating to a school in St. Thomas, you should let me know, because we have our auditors in the school now trying to do some reconciliation so we can have the matter solved. Let me know if that's the place you're referring to. Yes, and the regional director, Mrs. Blackwood, who is here, she's well on top of it. But we need the auditors to give us some findings around causes and so on. And the ministry will take care of any kind of damage that came out of that. You know the internals of that situation. Thank you.
To add, when I spoke with the administration of the school recently, I was told that we would have to write to the Attorney General if we want our late fees and interest to be paid. Hence, I brought the matter here.
Mm-hmm. We will do the advocacy. Yes, well, that's why I'm saying if there are damages, the ministry will take that on, because we're well aware of the situation. So.
Thank you.
All right, and with regards to the issue of surveillance cameras and security, we have done an assessment of all the schools, and it will cost us $1.5 billion to ensure that our schools have a minimum of 16 working cameras at their school. Obviously, we have to take this through the process, but in the meantime, I know for this school year, 15 schools are slated to get surveillance cameras. We've done the survey as well of existing schools that have cameras to see whether they are working or not, and we've identified those schools with cameras, with their cameras, how many are working, how many are not working, so we'll move to fix those, and we will add 15 cameras at 15 schools. The person, Marjorie, you mentioned Brayton Infant and Primary. Of note, we took immediate steps together with stakeholders at the school to ensure that cameras are installed at Brayton Infant and Primary. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I know that we added to what the school already had. And, okay, the procurement is happening right now. So, yes, that was not just talk. After that very horrific situation, we have taken the action. Thank you. Mr. President, I think that answers the issues from the four persons.
Thank you very much, Minister. We will now move to the next series of questions. Again, persons have aligned themselves, same process. Mic 1, mic 2. We will alternate for the next 4 questions. Member at mic 1.
Morning, everyone. Sean Blair, Central DA Trelawney Association, delegate. All right, so with all the numerous deficiencies that the early childhood sector is currently experiencing, and I want to highlight that as a male in early childhood for the past 13 years, what is being done urgently to address this, the most critical and most important sector on the educational spectrum? That's one. Two, is the name caregiver or caregivers the correct name to be given to a set of individuals who, in the absence of the trained teacher, has to carry out the same responsibilities? And to follow up on that, I believe that these individuals should receive allowances based on their job descriptions for protective clothing. And thirdly, there are some persons who have done the summer program and up to date have not received their payment. What is being done about that?
Thank you very much, member from Trelawney. Mike 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mark Malava. Let me just begin by commending the minister on the move for character education. Commendations are also in order, Minister, for the move to for postcodes. I want to also thank the team on a personal level for the cameras that my school will be getting and for fixing the steps that are being taken to fix the roof at the Yalas High School. Long overdue, but thank you. I feel relieved. Minister, I want to speak to the issue of teacher migration, and I'm seeing the data that has been promulgated, and I'm questioning the data, from this standpoint. You're using data for the Easter term going into the summer term. Now, from a principal standpoint, principals would have already taken steps to address those resignations. And those resignations have very little to do with going into the new term. So, the new school year. The data that would have been most applicable is June, July, August, September. Minister, I know about quantitative data, there is qualitative data, there is mixed method. And from where I sit, Minister, there is a crisis that is on the horizon, and we have not begun to have the dialogue in the way that we ought to be having the dialogue to address this matter. So it is something that I'm very much concerned about, bearing in mind that this has been happening over the years, and I am short of teachers. Anybody want to come to Yalas, just send an application. The other point that I want to make, Minister, quickly, I'm happy about the fact that the narrative, the discourse is beginning to gather momentum as it relates to transformation. In the Orlando Patterson report, Pathway 1 to Transformation speaks to incentivizing teachers. We missed that opportunity with the recent compensation review, and I'm saying this, Minister, it has left a bitter taste in teachers' mouth, in how it was treated, in how it was handled. Teachers were cajoled, bullied into accepting this deal, and it was a bad deal for us. And what is worse is that we still don't get where we agree for tech. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, member. Member Mike 1.
Good morning, everyone. Halima Jackson Wilkins, East DA, Kingston. I come representing early childhood, the early childhood sector, specifically basic schools. And again, as my colleague spoke, the basic school teachers who are trained teachers, we are poorly treated. And I really want the ministry to address the issue. ECC being an agency of the Ministry of Education, sometimes they do not have the answers to the questions we ask. And so I take this opportunity to ask, why is it after some 5 years, my friends, my colleagues still has to be signing this memorandum of understanding after being trained? Yes, college trained. They're still signing this document, some of them paying over $2,000 to photocopy it every July. They're only paid for 1 week in July, and that is really doing something to their mental health as practitioners, as teachers who are making a significant contribution to early childhood education. And it troubles me. Even though I myself am a trained teacher, I was permanent in the ministry in 2009. I have to speak about this. In 2009, I was made permanent, and in 2014, I was kicked off because I left from one basic school to another to make a difference, a massive difference in advancing a school that has over 300 children. Now I have been shortchanged, and my colleagues too are being shortchanged. And I'm asking if there is any way, and I believe there is because there's money available. So I'm asking if everything is being compromised, and so we need help, Madam. The trained teachers who are working in the basic schools. Thank you.
Thank you, member. Mike 2.
Good morning, Mr. President. Eton McNamee, General Counsel, Principal at Broadleaf Primary School in the parish of Manchester. My school was merged with an infant department. My salary has not been increased. The allotment to my school to take care of the teachers' needs, the students' needs, have not been increased. I have done a lot in stretching, begging, soliciting. In fact, I believe I now have a PhD in soliciting. Madam, we spoke about the internet. I will not even mention that this morning. What I will do, promise you, I will invite you to the ribbon cutting. I have some early childhood teachers that I have taken charge of. I call them teachers because they now have levels 1, 2, and 3, heart training. Now, the school, the infant department is woefully understaffed because you cannot get the permission to employ trained teachers. And so what I have to do, the teachers that have levels 3, 2 and up, I have to use those in the classroom as teachers. They are teachers. What I am suggesting is that you take a look into the heart-trained teachers. The level 3 teacher I have taught in the program, and those level 3 teachers, they not only are they trained, but they are doing an excellent job, and they are not being compensated for it. So look into that program to see if you can begin to see a way to certify those people as trained teachers so that we would have gotten rid of some of the problems at that level, because they're already doing the job. They just need the certification and the money to give them that perk. Another thing is that the after school extra lesson program that was instituted, a lot of us log on to it because we saw it as an opportunity to help the students to get back into streamline. To date, madam, there is no payment for some of these people. Can you give us a timeline as to when those will be paid? Because the money is not yet coming to them, even though we know that you said that you have the money. Another thing, finally, since you have the money, you identify the problem. The problem is the red tape. Now, what I would have loved to hear this morning is the plan ahead to cut the red tape a little shorter so that we can get the money. Thank you.
Members of conference, we have now exhausted the 30-minute extension to the session. We adjourn this session and start the next session. At the next session, we will allow the minister to continue responding to the questions that were asked, and then we will accommodate another set of questions. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, the 8th session of the 59th conference is now adjourned. We are now in the 9th session, and we will carry on with the business that was brought forward from the 8th session. Minister, you may now respond to those questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll start with the issues and questions posed by Sean Blair in terms of deficiencies in the early childhood sector, what is being done. So it was just recently that I asked Mrs. Deslandes, who is the CEO in the early childhood sector, to go through all of the schools, ones that are approved based on the standards, ones that are still lacking in meeting those standards, to give us a comprehensive list so that we can see where schools are not meeting, how the Ministry of Education and Youth can help them. I've just recently gotten that data, and we're going through it now in order to help more of our schools, our early childhood institutions, to meet the standards. And we believe that doing that will, move the sector forward significantly. Some of you talked about hiring of HEART students. I think Mr. Matnami talked about that, students with levels 3. We do it right now, right?
I'll ask Dr. Troop to come in as well on this, on the early childhood sector. But I can tell you, in terms of what is being done urgently, we are ensuring we have more trained practitioners in the early childhood institutions. We're looking at the infrastructure needs as well. And this year, for the first time, the sector was able to complete the readiness assessment of all the children in the early childhood sector who are 4 years of age. And so we have a lot of data that can help to guide us going forward. And this is a program, an assessment that has to be, we'd like to get done every year so that we're catching early those students that are exhibiting early issues, and we can help them before they get to primary school. So infrastructure needs, trained practitioners, the assessment, those are some of the things that are being done in the early childhood sector. But I know that you raised other more granular issues about the practitioners and trained teachers, and I'm going to ask Dr. Troop to make that distinction for us. And in cases where persons mention basic school, we want to make sure that they're not saying basic school and meaning an infant school, because there is a distinction between the two. Basic schools are private institutions that the government does provide some support for in terms of paying a teacher to be in, paying subsidy for a trained teacher to be in that institution. But we want to make sure when you say basic school, you really mean basic school and you're not talking about infant school. So Dr. Troop, you want to just take that?
Thank you, Minister, and I think you touched it right there. So colleagues, just to clarify a little further, so majority, I think we have 2,000 plus, Minister, you said it earlier in your presentation, of private early childhood institutions. So these are what we call basic schools or early childhood institutions. For some other institutions, we label it that way rather than saying basic schools that we're accustomed to. And you know we have infant schools or infant departments. Those are government-run schools for early childhood, for the early childhood level. So if it is that you are working in a basic school, there are some things that we do to support that level of operation. One, we may speak about merger, where we look to see how viable your institution is, or close you are to several other institutions that may be very small, and we look to see how we can bring all of those schools in one space together to form one school. We formalize the arrangement and we create an infant school for that space. Some institutions would say to us, we do not want to hand over our product to the government, we want support. There was a policy decision that was taken to support you with a trained teacher. Now, the criteria for that is that you would need to have an enrollment of 50 infants or more for a consecutive 3-year period. So once you are formally established for 3 years, the government will provide a trained teacher for you. That was the establishment, that was the agreement in the policy framework that was developed some time ago. But when you get that subsidy or you get to be employed as a government-trained teacher deployed in a basic school, you are employed to the ministry. You benefit from the terms and conditions of the education regulations. Remember, as per the regulation, you do not transfer as a teacher with your benefits because you are employed to a different board. So if you resign as a trained teacher in a basic school that we have an MOU with, an establishment, you are getting that teacher, you move to another institution without that support or framework, that benefit will not follow you because you are moving to a new board, a new institution, and that is explained in the regulation. So it's a policy
that we are guided by. If you move into that institution and your new institution is aligned to the established criteria, then the board for that school applies to benefit from the trained teacher policy. And we work that through with you, and we provide that support. Teachers, as you know, we don't transfer with our benefits. We created an opportunity throughout the pandemic, and as we are treating with the shortage of teachers for those in overstaffed school to move with their benefits. Whether you're a senior teacher or not, we created that, right? For a temporary measure once you're moving into a clear vacancy. So there are opportunities for that, but when you're in a basic school, it's a different arrangement. It's a private entity, it's a profit-making entity for some path, but others are not making much of it. And so we come into a partnership to assist you. Outside of that framework, ECI, or ECC rather, the Early Childhood Commission, they provide you with a subsidy. It's not a salary. It's a subsidy to complement what you are able to provide your staff through your board. In addition to that, the Early Childhood Commission came to the Ministry of Education and said, in addition to the subsidy, we have some schools that really could benefit from some trained teachers, or they have trained teachers, but their boards cannot pay them a trained teacher's salary. Can you help us? The Ministry of Education provided a grant to the Early Childhood Commission to provide a salary to trained teachers within basic school, but they are not employed to the government because there may be one trained teacher in that school already. That's the policy. But there may be others. You have upgraded yourself, and the ministry provided that subsidy. So it needs to be clear. So you may have the trained teacher, you may be getting the trained teacher subsidy, you may be getting the regular subsidy, you get your nutrition support, etc. These are some of the things we provide. For those schools that agreed to transfer to the infant school or infant department status, we are working through that. This year in the budget, we have $171 million targeting 24 schools to bring over into government departments. I think we will be able to get about 1,200 infants benefiting from that $171 million investment. So that's part of it. I think Latoya will also outline. NET is working with us. The minister gave an instruction that we need to look at those early childhood institutions that are not up to standard and develop a budget space for us to upgrade the infrastructure and for us to train the teachers. So Latoya will give you a little bit more about that as to where we are now and when we'll be able to roll out that program to support the early childhood sector.
Morning, everybody. So we got approval from PIAB, which is the Public Investment Appraisal Branch, for our project concept in June. That approval allows us to go full-blown project proposal, and following submission of the project proposal, then we will get cabinet's approval to be entered into the capital budget. With the project, the target is 233 early childhood institutions, whether it's to create new ones, fix existing infant schools, infant departments. It includes capacity building, and it also includes resources, because we have been doing resources with some schools through Chase primarily and other donors. So we recognize items such as play equipment, playground, the manipulatives for the classroom, the furniture, are all needs. So those items have been incorporated as resources that will be provided to the schools that are targeted, and capacity building is a critical element in partnership with JTC, Chase, and we're also looking to partner with JSIF for speedy rollout.
Thank you, Latoya. And just to add to Mr. McNamee's contribution with respect to the caregivers and the NCT vet level 1, 2, 3. So colleagues, we're not able to compromise the standard of the teaching profession. To enter the teaching profession, you have to be a trained teacher And we have moved from a diploma to a degree as the entry-level qualification to function as a trained teacher in our education sector. We will not compromise that. We recognize the investment made by our early childhood practitioners, our caregivers. And so what we have done, if we have teachers who have pursued, our caregivers who have pursued level 1, 2, and 3, for those teachers, what we did was to recognize the level 1, well, the level 2 and 3 as entry level for Teachers College to enter into the associate degree program for teaching. We created that program. I think, where is Monique? Monique is here. I saw the principal earlier. We have a program, an associate degree program in teaching, and that degree program will move, that associate degree program will move them into a full-fledged teaching program. We cannot compromise our standards. We will create learning trajectory, learning pathways for the caregivers, but they will move themselves up to at least a first degree to be qualified as a trained teacher in the education sector in Jamaica. We will not compromise that. So we will support them. That project that Latoya spoke about, it has capacity building in there. We will create scholarships for them. We will help to move them along the trajectory so they can get to that level of recognized teacher training in Jamaica. Oh, thank you, Dr. True. Yes, Minister. So the matter of extra lessons and the summer program and the non-payment of those fees, this really vexing issue came to my attention about 3 months ago. And the last time I spoke about it publicly, I did promise that we would do an investigation to try to reconcile what we were hearing out of our teachers from the region and in our finance department. I'm pleased to say today that if you or anyone at your school was impacted by this non-payment, that by the end of October, we should have mopped up all those cases. So please, I'm just putting that as an outer limit, but we're really working hard to make sure that those payments are made. In fact, we have done the reconciliation, and we recognize where the snags were in the system. And so that should be cleared up in the shortest possible time. But I'm putting October, at the end of October, as our outer limit. The fees, interest payments. Oh, we had spoken about that already. Yeah.
All right, thank you, PS. Let me answer the questions and issues that Mr. Malava put forward. But first, let me say, Mr. Malava, thank you for publicly acknowledging work that has been done. We don't always get that, you know, in the public space. We get the negative most times. So when someone stands up and says, we asked about postcodes, and those are being done. You asked about you raised the issue of your roof, and that is being fixed. Character education, we want to really thank you for just publicly acknowledging that. With regards to the data on teacher migration, when I spoke at the cabinet press briefing last week, was that last week? Last Wednesday, the data that I presented was data looking from January to September 2023, and that was the data we had as of that date. Will it change? Yes, because when we looked at September, we just had a few resignations effective in September. So we're expecting as August winds down, because I'm being told that traditionally teachers do not necessarily resign before the end of August. So the number I presented, which was 427 between January and September of 2023, that number could increase as we get the resignations for September. But that does not change the fact that in January of 2022 to September of 2022, 1,538 teachers resigned relative to 427 that we're seeing for that same time period. So those were the numbers that I presented. So June, July, August, and the information that we had for September is in those numbers. And as I did last year and will do again this year, as we get new information, we will update Jamaicans. And that is why we have announced all the strategies that we have announced, because not only are we dealing with teachers who have resigned this year, but as I said earlier on, we approved all of those teachers and the principals who requested to go on their eight months leave. We approved that, so we recognize that there is a gap to be filled. And from earlier on, we sought of the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service to get approval again for the locum tenant for teachers who are on their 4 months or 8 months leave. If they want to choose, they can be their own replacement and get paid for that engagement in addition to their vacation payment. That's one such strategy to help us this year. And there are others. You might have heard yesterday about the teacher availability solution from 1&1. We have created the job portal, the platform, to help our schools to advertise the openings that they have, whether it's the permanent opening or short-term opening, to put it there so that that's available for others to see across Jamaica, across the world actually, to see what are the positions, and for persons to also upload their resumes so that schools can see what is available. Remember as well, we have about 1,200 new teachers that have graduated into our system, specialist teachers who've graduated into our system. And so we're asking our schools, our principals, our boards to just get out there, use the job platform, use all your other avenues as well to help to fill the positions that you may need to fill in your schools. So Mr. Malabo, please take advantage of the jobs platform, and you're able to put up a profile of your school so that others reading it will immediately want to be at your school. Thank you. I think we've covered. Yes.
Okay, Minister. Thank you. Colleagues all, there are some logistical issues that we must take care of. The hotel has made available a desk just outside the conference hall to facilitate the checkout process. Remember, it is imperative that we check out at 12 o'clock. It's very imperative that we check out at 12 o'clock. They are here. They are inside, right outside the hall there. I'm going to also encourage that we do not all at once move. We do not all at once move. Additionally, ladies and gentlemen, we have other issues to take care of in our conference. I must cap the line at this time, so I'm asking for all the persons who are desirous of asking questions of the minister, please align yourself behind a microphone and we will cut off at the last person there. I'm asking a member of credentials to, Ms. Bromfield, are you the last person in that line? Please ensure that we cap the line, please. Again, anybody else who wishes to speak at this time, please align yourself behind a microphone. Member of credentials, please cap the line. Please note that after this, nobody else will be allowed to go to the line. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I ask us to be as succinct as possible. Please leave the preamble and ask the questions. Remember, we are all the way in the grill and persons need to get home safely. Mic 1.
All right, good morning, colleagues, morning conference. Madam Minister, this is Dorian Allen Rainford, and from the Kingston North Central DA. Madam Minister, as it relates to security and with the fact that we have cameras being placed in a number of schools, does this mean that the infant and primary schools will no longer have to apply at the beginning of the year for a watchman? That's number one. Number two, I heard you speaking about the policy document that governs devotion in schools. I'm asking you, Madam Minister, was there any consultation with the stakeholders of the various schools to see what works best and what is most effective for each school? Because when we speak about it, when we look at the matter of indiscipline in schools, then there are certain schools with various challenges, and therefore one of the avenues that they will focus on is to ensure that the spiritual upliftment of those students are catered to. My point number 3 and my question number 3 has to do with teacher migration. I have listened and I have noted a number of strategies that you have put in place to enhance how schools are actually manned at this time. As it relates to teachers, we know that the brightest minds and our more experienced educators are leaving our shores. Now, in terms of incentivizing these teachers, what is actually being done to ensure that the teachers who are graduate trained, who have lost those benefits, and also the increments that they would have gotten in terms of years of experience, what is actually being done or in the pipeline to offset and to enhance and to help these teachers to actually want to remain in the system?
All right, thank you for your questions. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we have to manage the time. We must manage the time. And I'm going to respectfully ask that we limit our questions to no more than 2. No more than 2. Please, we have to be cognizant of where we are. Mic 2.
Great afternoon. Great morning. Conference. Annette Clark is the name. St. Andrew Parish of Southwest DA as well. I want to ask a question of Madam Minister concerning those persons who appealed for 4 months. Last year you gave us an update on the appeal status, and this year we want to find out. Thank you.
All protocols observed. Good morning, everyone. My name is Joan Blackwood Simpson, Manchester Parish, I am a principal of a small school, Ebenezer Primary and Infant. Now, my school is deep, deep rural. It's in the bushes. A couple years ago, I am one of the professional beggars too. A couple years ago, I managed to source some cameras, 11 cameras for the school. This was short-lived because the criminals, they came in and they destroyed 7. We're left with 5. Madam Minister, I am seeking your assistance in reinstating the camera system at my school, please. My second question, my second point is, in 2021, my school was given the approval for a watchman. As I stated before, my school is deep rural. I was unable to manage to get a watchman at that time. However, I tried and I got someone. Now, when I wrote to the ministry, I was told that that offer no longer exists. Madam Minister, I'm asking you to try and help me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike 2.
Marvin Daly, DA President Nakalva.
Mr. Bailey, before you ask your question, can I, Ms. Blackwood Simpson, what school did you say? Ebenezer.
He's a primary and infant, South Manchester.
Okay.
Yes, Marvin Daly, President of the Nakalva DA. I attend teach at the Mount Peter Primary School. My wife is the senior teacher at that particular school, Diane Blake Daly. She has been underpaid for several months now. Mentally, she is stressed out, which affects and impacts how she deals with the children at school. I don't know, Madam Minister, if you have ever been underpaid before, or if you have ever not been paid by us who pay our taxes so you can be paid. But I have felt it before and my family is feeling it now. I have seen that you are talking about different policies. When will the government, your ministry, create a policy that will bind you to late payment? Give us a deadline, give us a time that if you pay us late, then there is penalty. We will give you a 20% increase because you paid us late, because we are emotionally impacted. And I ask you, if you have feelings, which I believe you do, have you ever been underpaid? Have you ever been late paid? Have you ever not been paid a month? I called her before I stepped to speak and I asked her, did you get paid from Kingston? She said to me, she called Kingston and Kingston said, next month she will be paid a bit now and she's going to the bank to see what the bit is. But next month, and I said, did they pay you correctly last month? She said, no. And I also want to thank you for addressing the summer school program 2021. She did not. She was the supervisor and she wasn't paid. So she's suffering. I am suffering. The students at Mount Peter Primary School is suffering. Teachers here are suffering. How will you help us? I am tired of. We need action. How will we be helped? Feel her pain. I went to the United States a few weeks ago and they said, Pastor Daly, come and teach here. I said, no, hold on. I need to build my country first. But how can I give back if my country refuses to invest financially? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Minister, please respond.
You didn't say anything. Intermission.
Reverend Daly, where are you, sir? Okay. If you just make your way to the platform, we have the salary officers here, so we can do some research and begin.
Mr. President, through
No, no,
you,
no.
sir, it's because
Hold
I
just
wanted to ask about
just a
safety.
second. Just a second. Madam.
All right. Doran, I think. Doran asked about the watchman. Oh, no. So, even if your school has security cameras, that wouldn't replace a watchman at your school. So, let us know of your particular situation before you leave here today. Just give us some more particulars, and we will look into what is available for that particular school. In terms of, and I know issues of salaries have been raised here today, and my answer is that the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service is a ministry in charge of salaries. Of course, from the Ministry of Education and Youth, we will provide whatever support is needed, data, information, to ensure that the issues that you bring to the table, they have some resolution. With regards to teacher migration, I don't know that I accept that it is the brightest minds that are leaving, because I know there are many bright minds in this room today. Yes, yes, so let us not get caught up in the rhetoric that is going around. There are many bright teachers remaining in Jamaica as well. With regards to persons who applied for their 4 months leave and appeal, the numbers, there were 134 applications. Appeals, there were 134 appeals, and we so far have approved 35. So those are the numbers. And for Ms. Blackwood Simpson from Ebenezer, you want 7 of your cameras restored. We will definitely put that on the list. It's in the audit as well. It's in the audit as well. And you said that in 2021, you got approval for a watchman. It took you some time before you identified someone, and then the ministry is telling you that the offer no longer exists. That sounds...
Okay, if it's 2021, Minister, during the COVID period, we created an opportunity for our schools to benefit from support staffing. So we had a little budget space at the time because of the flexibility that the pandemic provided. We weren't funding everything as normal because students were not in school, so we were able to move the resources differently based on the needs of the system at the time. But now we have regularized. We have to go back to the standard funding processes, and the funds for subvention is not something we can via PS. It's sitting right beside me. We have to seek guidance from the Ministry of Finance for that. And so at this time, if it were additional, we would not have that budget space. But what we have done since, colleagues, if you follow your bulletins, we sent out a bulletin advising our principals how to proceed with the requests for additional staffing. During the pandemic, we were able to provide resources without post codes. Now with the introduction of the MyHR Plus, we need post codes to pay. So we wouldn't be able to just say, go ahead and employ a watchman or for any kind of watching service, because we need post codes to pay. So please, principals, if you're in this room, teachers, when you go back, remind your principals to utilize the post-creation procedure so we can take it through finance, get that code, so we can properly pay the persons who will perform the watching service. Outside of that, at this time, with the technology layered onto our system, we cannot employ without post codes. And I'm reiterating that just in case, because I know we got accustomed to just following some procedures during the pandemic, but we have normalized now. We need post codes to pay. Don't take on anybody and send them to the ministry and said, oh, we need the person because we qualify. If you do not have that post code, do not engage. We cannot pay without a post code. So please pay attention. The MyHR Plus system needs it to pay. So I'm reminding our principals to pay attention to that, and that includes the guidance for the support staff as well. Thank you.
Okay, member Mike 1.
Marjorie Harris, East DA, St. Thomas. Minister, I asked 2 questions earlier on. I noticed that the second question was not answered. And the second question is, what about schools that have well-fortified fencing, but there is nobody to man the gates? So we need to know, what do we do? The school that I work at, we have a well-fortified school, but we don't have anybody to man the gate. Anybody can walk in, snatch any child, kill any teacher. So I need to know, what do we do?
Noted. Mike 2.
Carol Brown Clark, Central Clarendon DA, and principal at Tollgate Primary and Infant School. My first question was just done right there. I also serve as QEC, President QEC 51, and my principals have been texting. They're saying that they have applied for projects with Food for the Poor, that's a primary school persons, and there is an hold up because Food for the Poor is saying that documents that should come ownership from the Ministry of Education are delayed, and this is causing the schools not to be able to, get these projects done. So I need to know why. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike 1.
Good morning, Mr. President. I'm Ray Howell, trustee. First, I need to commend the ministry for granting the number of 8 months leave, long in coming. I hope you keep it as a follow-up going forward. I also commend you for the postcodes, but they have indicated a 1,964 postcode for the academic and administrative staff. Could you update us on those in the primary sector? Because most of those persons in the primary schools are temps, And many of them are working for 25, 30 years. I'll be going home without anything. I recall when Dwight Nelson was in that ministry, we worked on a project on a policy, and they have no pension, and some have reached retirement age. Some may get extra payment depending on the ministry. What is the now updated status of the ancillary staff in primary school, especially the cooks and the janitorial staff who have given all their life and will be going home with anything? The other critical thing you mentioned is the issue of the early childhood, and I heard that I do not believe that the ministry have a transformational policy on early childhood. From my take, we have over 2,600 basic school early childhood. If you put 24 per year, you're going to take 108 years, over a century, to complete the list. If you take 50, you're going to take 52 years. If you take 100, you're going to take 24 years. I think if we're going to fix education, we need to fix the early childhood, especially getting those early childhood basic school out. As I indicated from the data, we have over 2,600 of them. The ministry must have a timeline to get all schools in the system with trained teachers who have the necessary competence in early childhood education to deal with the issue. Otherwise, we're going to just talk and talk. The final point I want to make, I heard you mention the issue of you have enough money. The question I want to know, is it on the capital or recurrent? Because I do know from where I sit in the system, you always have money on the capital but not in the recurrent. And the capital especially need to go through a long unnecessary process in terms of procurement. And from where I sit, if you make arrangement for some of the schools have the competence to do the work, to build the schools at a less cost than going through all those rigmarole. And I'm a testimony for that in transforming schools in terms of building and processes. We need to find a way to get all those middlemen, cross processes to cut the cost. So the question is, madam, is it you have enough money on the capital, or is it that you have enough money on the recurrent? I do not believe you have enough money on the recurrent. Prove me wrong.
Thank you, member. Mike 2.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm sorry, it's good afternoon. Patrine Daly Chambers from St. Elizabeth. Madam Minister, I stand before you this morning demotivated and dejected. I'm not a principal, I'm just a lowly teacher. You mentioned that our administration should elevate and support and motivate us. But my question to you is, what are you doing to reignite the passion of the teachers for September morning? Thank you.
Thank you. Mike 1.
Good morning all. Ramona Bromfield, Portmore District Association, principal of a grade 2 school. In March, I received my retro pay. April, I got $109,000. May, I got $246. June, I got what I used to get before no, I'm not telling that one. Before the compensation review. July, I got $4,000 plus what I used to get before the compensation review. Now I'm scared to check my account as I'm not sure what to expect My son just texted me to say he got accepted in university, and I had to say, defer until January, as I'm not sure how to budget to send you off to school. I want to know how soon I can know what my salary will be. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister, you could respond.
All right, I'm going to start with the teacher with the salary issue. Teacher, I didn't get her name, but we have our salaries people here, and they can help you on the spot to help you understand the different amounts that you are seeing in your salary on a monthly basis. But I want to say that I have taken a look at some of these salary payments, persons who they've sent them to me because they're saying, how come I got this in 1 month and a different thing in another month? And in the cases that I have seen, and I'm not saying all cases, in the cases that I have seen, the variability in the monthly salary has to do with the change in the deductions that people have, and there might be some change in the taxation. I am not saying it is in all cases. Please understand what I'm saying. The ones that have come to me, the teachers who have sent me their pay slip 3 months or 4 months, when I looked at it, and you look at the numbers, you look at the variability, that was what I saw, and we went back to the teachers to let them know that yes, in this month, you had a request not to have a deduction, but in the other month it was reinstated and so on. Again, not all the cases, that's not what I'm saying, but that's the issue. Yeah. But we have the payroll department here this morning for any such issue. They can look it up for you.
Thank you, Minister. I'd just like to add, colleagues, and I want you to listen carefully. The JTA has been on this issue on your behalf. And just 3 weeks ago, we had a workshop at the Ministry of Finance where Madam Past President raised the issue and what about the fluctuation that you may be seeing in your salaries, some large, some small. And it came to light that one of the most impactful factors was that of the variable rate of taxes. So we did our workshop. The members of the team here can explain it to you. And if you have an issue and it has not been brought to the fore, just let us know. We're doing a manual review of all the salaries under the compensation review. In fact, we're 95% complete. The JT has asked us for the details, and we are about to give them that in a couple of weeks because we recognize what's happening and we're working in the background to make sure at the end of the day each person is equitably and fairly compensated.
So Mr. Harris asked, what about this? Is it Mr. Harris or Ms. Harris? Sorry. What about schools with fencing but no watchmen? I'm told, again, you have to apply to your region, through the region, right? And we have to go to that process of applying for postcode so that you'll be able to take on the watchman. So please, if you have that issue, your regions are there to help to guide you through the process. For the teacher from Tollgate, in which the school applied to Food for the Poor, and they're waiting on documents from the Ministry of Education and Youth. let us have the name of that school. I know we have our director of Technical Services Unit, and he can tell us exactly where it is in the process and why it's taking so long. But we'd love to get those documents to you for Food for the Poor so that you can have whatever it is that the Food for the Poor is going to be doing for your schools. With regards to postcodes, it was across the board, primary and high school. Did we do ECC? Yeah, the postcodes was right across. So primary schools were included as well. Yeah. We don't have the breakdown on hand, but we can tell you exactly primary versus secondary, exactly how many postcodes and what positions there were for.
Sorry to interject, Minister, but could you speak to the postcodes for security officers and other personnel? Are they all involved in this?
All right, so classroom teachers across the board, 3,187. Cooks, 726. Guidance counselors, 190. Caregivers, 645. Plant managers, supervisors, 18. System administrators, 85. Clerical assistants, 18. Secretaries, 80. Watchmen, 53. Deans of discipline, 41. So that's the different categories of persons who are being assigned postcodes. Thank you. Right, and the PS is telling me that it was based on an audit of the entire system, including early childhood, right? Including the infant schools.
Right, just to reiterate what Minister said with respect to the caregivers, we really went out to assist in this category. We got 645 caregivers this year, and those letters should be out in the schools. And just to reiterate that even for the compensation review, and I know it's a sore point and we may not all be satisfied, but for this category of staff, they experienced a 100% increase in their salary.
Funding to do what we need to do on an annual budget is there. We have not been able to exhaust it on an annual basis on the capital side. And we're going to shore up
Right. So Mr. Howell asked about timelines for the ECC modernization program, and that we need to indicate by when. I just want to remind the colleagues that not all of these institutions will agree to be modernized or come over into the government teaching service. In the same way, we have prep schools actively running alongside our primary schools. They are a viable sector, and they are not interested in becoming primary schools. They want to run their own businesses. We have early childhood institutions who want to remain as such, running their own private entities. What we are looking at is to respect that, acknowledge that, and audit those schools that really want to come over, and we will work with them. The first part of that, Minister directed that we should look at rolling out the staffing support, because we recognize that the value of a trained teacher in these institutions make a big difference. And so that's part of what ministers asked the ECC to look at. Let us look at these institutions, how many teachers they need to have, what's the cost to remunerate these persons, and see if we could create a pathway in that approach while acknowledging the individuality in the institution rather than transforming them to government sector. Because not all of those institutions would like to do so. They are family businesses. They tell us that they want to hand it down to their children, and it has been in their families for years. So we have to be careful how we transition, and we have to show respect for that in the same way we do so for the prep school. So I just want us to understand the dynamics in the sector with respect to the basic school situation. Thank you.
And then I think the final question or issue had to do with what Ms. Chambers presented from St. Elizabeth about how are we going to reignite the passion of it's not just about the students, it's also about the teachers making their work environment better, ensuring that they have the resources, that they don't have to dip into their pockets to buy things for the classrooms, ensuring that you have professional development that's available to you, making sure you have access to technology. These are all changes and initiatives in the sector that were not present a few years ago, that we have embarked on to uplift and ensure that the sector has the resources needed. It is going to continue to take time and more capital to do, but I gave you the commitment. I explained the major initiatives that we're working on in terms of technology, infrastructure, and we will continue to present these. I mean, to do the postcodes, that's an upliftment. There are many persons who've been working in the system 10, 20 years who do not, over the years, have not felt secure in their positions because they don't have this coveted postcodes. It took us 2 years to sort through all those persons who did not have a postcode, to present the justification, to look at your records, to pull those records. But we stuck at it and we did it because it is important that you feel comfortable with your security of tenure, and that when you get to retirement, you don't, have this thing coming at you out of the blue saying, oh, we don't have a postcode on record for you, and all the issues that flow from that. So these are some of the things that have just lingered in the sector for a while that we've taken on to get resolution, to get improvement. I mean, approving teachers for their 8 months leave. I've looked back at the history, and every year there are teachers who are denied. And there has been, up and down in the public domain, complaints about teachers losing their benefit, because when you get to that point in 10 years, there's no more vacation that's accruing for you. If you work another year, you're not getting another month. These are things that, when they came to my attention, I could not let them just stay and not do anything. So there's a lot to be done. Remember that the education system, as we know it now, dates back to independence. We are modernizing, and the whole issue of transformation is on the table. We've started it in earnest. We want to hear from you. We've given you a commitment about input into policies, input into other areas of education. We want to resolve all those niggling issues that have been around for years. And I believe we're solving them, taking the biggest ones, prioritizing them, and resolving them. And that's the commitment that we make to you this morning. And I believe that you are seeing some of the fruits of the work that we've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I see the chair of credentials at the microphone. Go ahead, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. President. The time allotted for the 9th session of the 59th annual conference has elapsed beyond 3 minutes of that allotted time. I now ask, sir, that you request a motion for the business of conference to continue for another 27 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the motion is before you. May I ask someone to move? So moved by Mrs. Hendricks-White, seconded by Trustee Ray Howell. We will proceed with the business of conference in this 9th session for another 27 minutes. There are 2 other individuals standing at the mic to ask questions. Only those 2 persons. Mic 1. Microphone 1.
Thank you, sir. Again, Antonio Baker, Portmore DA delegate. Mrs. Minister, you said that there is something going to be worked out for those who are like on leave to work during their leave, and they'll get double pay. Basically, 1 pay for your leave. And I want to ask you, madam, that in the same way consideration is being made for that consideration also be made for the second salary, either to be tax-free or calculated at a different rate. Why I say that is because the higher the salary, the higher the tax that is withdrawn. So I might not necessarily see it as a benefit to have my money being, a whole chunk of it being taken out to return to the government. Just saying to consider. You don't have to, it is up to you. Secondly, a colleague of mine had asked me to ask, what is the timeline for the shift schools coming off shifts? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mic 2.
Good afternoon, colleagues, Mr. President. Amount of persons who have raised issue concerning the safety and security of the schools and staff. And that is saying to me that as a ministry, and I am aware that there are some things that have been done, that the safety and security of our schools take center stage. As deans of discipline, we are engaged in safety and security of all staff on a daily basis. While I was president of the association, I've made many recommendations concerning how do we treat with students who are uncontrollable. And I'm not sure if we have made any headway concerning such. Deans of discipline guidance counselors most times are able to detect when students
have going in a particular direction. The ministry doesn't necessarily want principals to suspend these students out of school. The recommendation and the question I've asked, can we find a way to create a place so that when these students are suspended, an intervention center, I called it while I was president, where these students go into this space with all the necessary resources, the counselors, the dean of discipline, the psychologists, the name it, in that institution, so that the police, 10 years down the road, don't have to be trying to find a gunman or a gunwoman, but we are able to at least cauterize and help these students on a path of recovery. Too often, we have seen, we see the students who are the ones who are creating mayhem in the system. And we are not doing enough to transform these students. So I'm asking, Minister, I know we have just meds and all of that, but we need a partnership between the stakeholders, the army, the police. Find a way so we can engage these students so that we don't have to, they don't have to face in a gun and they are drawn by gangs and so on later on. So intervention center in every region is needed. Or if not in every region, give us something. We don't want these students to be suspended and create other problems in their communities. We want transformation. The next question, Minister, is as deans of discipline, and there are others, I'm sure, guidance counselors, the school is struggling in terms of resources. Our conferences come up, and many of our administrators are saying they don't have the necessary resources to send our counselors, our deans of discipline to these conferences. Can something be done that resources are allocated so that these individuals can benefit from these conferences? Thank you.
Thank you very much, member. All right, so we did say 2 last questions, but there is another member standing at the mic, and we will be extending the courtesies to you. Go ahead, member, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, conference. My name is Dion Bailey, delegate of Kingston. All protocols observed at the head table. I stand here this afternoon feeling like a woman in a very abusive relationship. And the reason why I said that, in the period of the pandemic, the basic school teachers, we had meetings with Madam Minister and Madam Chief Education Officer online, right? In these meetings, this notion is going around that basic schools are private. Indeed, some are private. But to my remembrance, at 85% of the basic schools in Jamaica is public-private. Why do I say that? They said that basic school belongs to the community. Who owns and maintains the community? It was done through a councillor. And these communities make up constituencies, so we have member of parliament have the privilege in sitting in the House of Representatives. Now, I fall in the 85%, which is public-private, and I am on the fence. I don't know if I should go left or I should go right. And I stand here as a trained teacher from the Michael University, and I am passionate about my job. I will never trade my knowledge, my passion to go into a primary school. I will never do that. I am a proud basic school teacher, and I've spent 18 years in the inner city, and I can name that community if I wish. And I just feel abused and used. So when will this temporary trained teacher, the temporary, be moved from our name and attached to permanent, seeing the exodus of what is happening in the teaching fraternity? Because it's not only primary school and high school teachers are leaving. Trained teachers are leaving the early childhood sector as well. Madam Minister, Madam Chief Troop, please let me feel loved and appreciated in this relationship. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, member. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues all, just to acknowledge our teachers who are viewing online, they have sent in some questions that have been resolved already, but there are still 2 questions, Minister and team. And this again is something that I addressed. What will be some of the steps taken for teachers to be paid before 3 months when employed in the system? So, Minister, that is a chronic issue. And then there is a matter for the ECC. Minister, a practitioner is asking, why is the ECC still demanding printed activity / weekly plans in a technological era? Inspectors are refusing soft copies. Can you address those, please?
All right. I'm going to call on Dr. Troop with regards to the ECC. But I will take back the issue of the printed documents versus the electronic documents back to the CEO, given the age that we're in, and they should be accepting electronic documents unless there's a requirement for a signature on a particular document or so. So I'll take that back and find out what are the limiting factors. Can we transition to having electronic documents being accepted? So I'll take that one back on. Dr. Troop or PS, could you speak to the temporary trained teachers?
Okay, I think I alluded to that earlier, Minister. It is a support that is provided to the basic schools as requested by the ECC. As indicated, the definition of your institution will impact how the government resources can be used. You said that your institution came out of a community design. I am not seeing the passionate teacher. Can you say if your school applied to be converted or to be modernized? So that's very important. She's coming. All right, let's hear your teacher voice.
Oh, it's back. Want to hear my teacher voice? Let's go. No, Madam CEO. We did not apply to become under the government regime.
Is that your interest?
Fully government regime.
Okay, so let us stop at the end of this conversation because we need to start the application process.
It will be a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
Right. Well, she's a principal. Right, so we'll just provide you with the guidance, so you will, through your board, write to be considered for modernization. That goes to your region. Your region will come. They will do the consultations, talk with your stakeholders, your parents, the community, look at the costing. Those will come to Central for funding, and then we will take that to Cabinet for the formal establishment and approval, move to gazetting, and then we'll establish you. So that's the length and breadth of the process, but we just need to start with the application. I think that's it, Minister?
No, I'm done.
Oh, for the Dean?
Resources to send the dean.
Okay, for the Dean. All right, so let me just go through what we really want for our students. We know that we have some challenging situations in our schools. And over the years, if you walk with us through the journey of the improvement decisions, remember we started out school with just teachers. It became challenging. There was an advocacy. Guidance counselors were introduced to the system to layer some therapeutic approaches to behavior management. We needed support. Then it got a little bit more difficult, and there was another advocacy for deans of discipline, which we layered onto the system. It started out in a punitive way, where the deans thought that their roles were combative, you know, trying to be fighting or be very hardcore with our students. We revised that, and we also moved to change the qualifications for our deans for more therapeutic roles. So social workers, counseling psychologists, counselors, social workers, right? We moved because, again, the thrust was not to make our schools hard places, but child-friendly places. So we layered therapeutic roles onto the system. Then we introduced the health and family life education. Again, another therapeutic role to teach the soft skills, the life skills. So we reduced the number of incidents of indiscipline in our schools. Remember the trajectory. All these stakeholders are still with us. Mr. Smalling, we also put social workers in some cases, or the guidance counselors upgraded to be social workers, so we could benefit from the case management skills that the guidance counselors did not come with. Then we also moved into capacity building. The guidance counselors formed themselves into an association, and through the association we supported capacity building. The deans of discipline also moved into an association, and through that body we have been providing capacity building to layer the technical skills, the cognitive restructuring, the empty chair technique, you name them, the counseling. Colleagues, we want to focus on those strategies first and foremost. From the last Deans of Discipline conference, there was another advocacy that instead of having everybody working in silo in the schools who were placed for the same reason, behavior management, should we not move to a collaborative approach? And there was a request for the deans of discipline, the guidance counselors, the nurse, and the health and family life educator, since they are the behavior change specialists in our schools, to work together as a team, and that there was a request for some funding to support the overall programs for those bodies, our technical skill set in our schools. That was responded to this year. So in our back to school conferences right across the region, we did update our principals that they will see an additional grant for behavior support, where the team of therapeutic workers in our schools should pull together and work together in the interest of our students, not in silo. The guidance counselors over there doing something, the deans over there doing something, the health and family life educators over there doing something, the nurse doing health education somewhere else. We need to pull that team together. They were layered on the system for this purpose. Yes, there will be times we may have to pull a student. Remember, we have been working with the Peace and Justice Centers. Remember, you asked for technical counselors. These are now counseling psychologists, those specialists that we cannot pay in our schools. You asked that a grant be made available for parents who cannot access private therapy. We should pay for that for them. Our minister was asked that throughout the pandemic, and this is the third year that we are moving into this support. In the first year, $15 million was put aside for you to tap into clinical services for students who cannot benefit from the local service at the school level, need a higher technical service and support. We provided that, and that support is still with us this year. We pulled together a team of specialists in each region. The 7 regions were asked to find your psychologists, find your clinical therapists in your region, pull them as a team. And when the schools request the service, we will get the children and their parents to access this high-level support. We also said that this is available to teachers. So we have the clinical therapy available. Again, we may have pullouts. We will look at that. We are working with the Child Guidance Clinic to also provide counseling support for our children. I think Dr. Pinnock, Michelle, you are working to expand and to create a center on your side for this year. So we are expanding. And Minister will talk about the therapeutic center that we just launched. And remember, National Parenting Support Commission. They have been working with us. I think Casey is here. And I want her to talk about our reach this year. How many parents we were able to reach for counseling support, for capacity building in terms of how they become better parents. That's part of the behavior change model. So, Kesia, I want to give you a few minutes. I think it is right to talk about how we are supporting change in behavior management in our schools.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So our support to schools certainly continue. This year we serviced over 50,000 parents, and we do have a big target of 157,000 as at July 1. We continue to work directly and indirectly with schools. Of course, we also are partners with the Ministry of Justice through the Restorative Justice Centers. And what we're asking you to do is to reach out to the Commission. You don't have to feel isolated as if the issues pertaining to student behavior are solely on your shoulders, Deans of Discipline. You have a whole suite of skill sets available to you, and the Commission stands ready to support schools.
Thank you so much, Casey. And I just want to remind our colleagues, we went down the road of timeout facilities some time ago. We tested the concept, and colleagues, it failed. It failed because we almost shut out these children out of the system. The minute we referred them to Alpha and to the other center in Mandeville, the learning discontinued. There was a model where the children should be supported with their learning material, so when they come back, they would not be disconnected. That failed. The children were shut out of the system. Colleagues, our intention is not to separate our children from the system, but to support them through their journeys. It may be difficult for some, but we have to remember, it's not that we are not interested in providing pullouts, but we have to be committed to the children wherever they are. The children suffered in that timeout facility. The leaders of those institutions struggled for our principals to be committed to having the learning materials be available to the children. Those were some of the things that caused that approach to fail. So I just want to remind our system, it's not that we turned away from it, it's not that we didn't try it. We did, but we have to make sure that we recognize that the children are first, and the best place to serve them is really in our schools.
Thank you, Dr. Troop. On top of all of what you've said, the recent launch of the Therapeutic Center through the CPFSA, which is a Child Protection and Family Services Agency is just a magnificent development for us. We're putting the focus on therapeutic treatment for our children. Yes, I know the doors have just been opened for the one in Kingston. We're looking at others in other parishes. The one in Kingston is a non-residential therapeutic center with access to professionals that I am sure is going to get good utilization of children who are experiencing behavioral issues. And we know that behavioral issues are on a spectrum, and what may be a behavioral issue to one teacher is beautifully handled by another teacher, but the facility is there to help all of us. Let me move on to the issue of the timeline for shift schools. You know, that's okay, we're back on. On the issue of the timeline for shift schools, I'm just saying that's an area that I didn't touch on, but one that we are really proud of the work that we have been doing to de-shift schools in our system. There were 36 schools, and since then, we have broken ground on Bridgeport, and we're expecting that that school will be de-shifted come September 2024. We are going to be cutting the ribbon on Black River come September 2023, and there are a number of other schools lined up: Exchange, Papine High, Cedric Titus, Albert Town, and I will ask Latoya of the National Education Trust to give us some further details. But I want our principals to know as well that another strategy that we're using, we're looking at the various communities that are in close proximity to each other, and if there are several schools in that area where the particular shift school may not have land on which to expand, we're looking at other schools, and we will create spaces in that school so then it frees up for the schools that are experiencing problems with spaces or on shift. And one such example so far is Homo Technical in Manchester. Building additional classrooms for Homo Technical will help to free up spaces at other schools. So that's another strategy that we use. But Latoya, if you could go down the list, we're particularly proud of this initiative to de-shift our schools.
Okay, so in this financial year, we expect to commence construction at Exchange All Age, Albert Town, Cedric Titus, Jonathan Grant. We are also in design phase. We're sorting out some land matters with respect to Papine. And Port Antonio, we're finalizing designs. The river training is challenging our designs, so we had to do some reconfiguration on that. Also, in design phase, or pre-construction as we call it, we have Port Antonio Primary, Mushet High, Aracabessa High, Green Island, Lacovia, Belfield, Christiana Cristiano, we have to look at that. The principal has indicated that there's land, even though our assessment shows differently, so we're revising that. But Petersfield, St. Anne's Bay Primary, Seaforth High, and Boundbrook Primary, and Chapelton All Age. Some of these schools are, well, there are land issues, such as Donald Quarry. We're trying to locate lands for that or find some engineering solution based upon the location of that facility. Old Harbor High, which is also a shift school, that school can't be expanded any further. So we have actually working out the final thing with NHT for land acquisition in Colbeck for the construction of a new school. So where we can't expand a school based upon constraints, we are looking to build new schools within the catchment areas based upon the data that planning has. So those are the ones that have already been identified with available land and are going, either designs are in progress or the designs are to be commissioned following geotechnical and survey activity this year. Greenfield Primary? Yes. Okay. My PS has told me that Grange Hill Primary will be de-shifted come September also. But we're also looking at them for a facelift and modernization.
I think the final question has to do with resources for deans of discipline to go to conferences.
Madam Minister, as a matter of our protocols and standing orders, it is necessary for us to bring this session to a close. We have exhausted the extension given, and we are in breach of our standing orders at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a very robust discussion, a morning filled with information. Colleagues, all please note that we have 2 sessions to deal with in one. And at this time, I again am craving your indulgence and your participation. We are now just a few minutes past 1. We have to ask that we consider cutting the lunchtime so that we can be back here for 2:15. We're asking of your cooperation and your full participation in this matter. So before I adjourn this session, I now invite our President-elect to do the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, Leighton Johnson, immediate past President, Ms. LaSonia Harrison, Secretary General Dr. Mark Nicely, and of course our Honorable Minister of Education, Favour Williams, Dr. Maureen Dwyer, our Permanent Secretary, and Dr. Troop, all of the members of the executive team of the Ministry of Education, colleagues all, good afternoon. It is indeed my task to say thank you to the team from the Ministry of Education for journeying here to meet with us at our 59th conference. Can we give them all a big round of applause? It is John F. Kennedy which once opined that our progress as a nation can be no faster than our progress in education. And so is true of our progress as an island state. We must recognize that our first responsibility is the development of the minds as our fundamental resource of this country. And so it is very important that we meet once a year in this fashion to really talk about the issues that affect it. And I want to ask you to put your hands together for yourselves, for sitting through the sessions, for asking the pertinent questions, for being courageous enough to navigate that space that is so important as we try to come together to find the solutions to the challenges that plague our system. We must understand that we are two sides of the same coin, and there must be collaboration and work, and I want to thank the Honourable Minister for all the many things that she shared that we're going in the right direction. In the interest of time, I will cut down my remarks, but it is very important also that we address forthwith those issues that have been raised that plague our teachers, that are an inhibiting factor in us moving the system forward. And so, once again, I wish to thank on behalf of the Jamaica Teachers Association, the Ministry of Education, for taking the time out to be here. God bless you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, on the basis that we will be condensing 2 sessions into one, we now have to treat with the priority matters when we return. If you are guided by your program, you would realize that the President's program needs to be presented, as well as the Constitution of General Council. These will take some time, and therefore those will be the priority for the last session of conference. I crave your indulgence in this. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now lunchtime. This session stands adjourned. May we stand for grace. Bow your heads, please. Father God, we thank you for the opportunity of being together like this. We pray in the Holy Spirit that as we pause to nourish our bodies, we will continue to make the commitment to devote ourselves to your service. These and other mercies we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we must be back here by 2:15. I'm asking us to cooperate. Thank you.